Hello and welcome to the Nano Film Improv Podcast. I'm Dave Heron. This podcast is about my trials and tribulations associated with improv comedy and doing it, performing it, rehearsing it. So this is really a cathartic outpouring of the things that I've learnt, the things that I'm struggling with, and an opportunity to share with you and hear from you also some of the things that have worked for you, and equally there'll be some things on this podcast that you have tried that don't work for you. It's all very subjective. My experience level is, well, I've had a few years experience doing improv. I've taught a bit of improv. I've performed with a whole range of exciting and talented improvisers and learnt from sets that have gone well and sets that haven't gone well. And this is all part of an evolution for me as well. So you're very welcome in joining me on this podcast. So this week, I want to talk about just stop, Dave. Those are words that are routinely said to me by my wife, my parents, people I work with, and I've just come to accept them. But for the purposes of improv comedy, this week I really wanted to focus on just stopping, pausing before stepping on stage. It's something that I touched upon relatively recently when I was talking about the necessity for warm-ups, and one of those being the fact that I just need to remind myself how to do improv, which it does sound a little bit sort of silly, but when you've been sort of doing other things throughout the day, you sometimes just need to get your head in the game and remind yourself, what have I learnt recently? What have I been rehearsing on? What did I do in the courses and the workshops, etc.? And how do I make sure that I continue doing that and I don't just go back to what I was doing before the workshop, the rehearsal, the course, etc.? Now, I know I'm not alone in that. I have heard other people say that about themselves. I have been an audience member, a teacher, a participant in classes with people who learn things with me and then just revert back to what they were doing beforehand. And for me to kind of feel like I'm developing and I'm getting better at improv, I've got to remind myself how to do improv. And some of that, as I say, is helped by pausing before I step on stage. So practically, that means I'm on the back line, which is a very esoteric term used by improvisers to mean those people who are already on stage, but they're just standing in the wings, I guess, on the sides, waiting to step into the scene, but just pausing when I'm in that position before I'm about to step on stage. And there are about 2 or 3 things that I just wanted to share with you today that I'm just really challenged and struggling to do. And so I want to become more conscious and in the moment. This is back to some of the meditation things that I've spoken about previously. But be in the moment and remind myself, just pause, think about the things that you need to do before stepping on stage and then do them, rather than just blindly going and doing the things I did previously. And this, to a certain degree, has a little bit of a nexus to, I guess, outside of improv as well. When I think about my work, I have to make sure that I prepare beforehand before I ask questions. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means when I'm in a meeting at work, I have historically just blurted out questions and over-explained it or tried to give context, and it just has come across as a load of old waffle, which I'm sure some of you will view this podcast as a load of old waffle. But it does have a nexus. It does mean that you need to prepare and be succinct. Prepare your question before you ask it in a meeting. One of the other things I've started doing at work as well is preparing beforehand speaking notes. If I've got to present on something, I do use speaking notes, which I guess is kind of almost the reverse or the opposite of improv. I don't try and wing it in presentations. I do try and prepare what I want to say so that I know that I'm going to cover everything that I want to do. So that's not quite the same as pausing, but it certainly is pausing before preparing at work and going, right, what do I actually need to do before I step into this meeting? What are the things that I need to say before I speak? And so in the terms of improv comedy, I don't think there's any difference. I don't think you can just jump into something. I do think for me, certainly, I really do need to pause and think just before stepping on stage, just to make sure that I'm just doing some of the basics right and I don't go and do the stuff that I can to be honest with you, find myself doing quite regularly if I leave that unchecked. So the first of those things is, as I probably talked about before, character. Now, for those listeners who have listened for quite a while to the Nanofilm Improv Comedy Podcast, you will know that I challenged myself about a year ago to try and get better at doing character. Well, I have failed. And the reason for that is I've just been focusing on other things, just enjoying the improv rather than sort of necessarily focusing on character. I mean, I guess you can do the same, but I guess I've been focusing on other aspects, as I say, enjoying it, being playful, all the things I've talked about previously on the podcast. So I kind of haven't given character as much dedication and focus as possibly I should have done. And so I want to get better when I step on stage. I don't just want to be Dave Heron. I don't just want to be this stock character that I've spoken about before, the posh lady or Potato. To be fair, small side note, Potato, which is this kind of goblin character, hasn't made an appearance for quite a while, and I'd quite like to bring him back. That's just a small side note, so anyone who sees me perform will probably get to see Potato in the year 2026. But those are the types of things that I want to pause and think about. What's my accent? Politically correct accent, of course. Nothing that would, I guess, kind of cancel me from improv. What's my character stance? How do I hold myself? What are my beliefs? Are they irrational or rational beliefs? These sorts of things I want to just not think about too much before stepping on stage, but certainly have something in mind that I can step on, and it isn't just me coming on stage with my hands in my pockets, looking at someone else going, "You're right." And whilst it hasn't been that bad, not all my scenes are like that, I just want to be more, as I say, present, conscious in the moment just before stepping on stage to go, right, this is who you're going to be. Now, the second thing is thinking about how to open the scene. Now, that's highly assumptive that I would be the one opening the scene. But when I mean opening, I don't just mean the opening line. I'm talking about the first line and the second line and a little bit thereafter. Now, if you're having an opening line, I guess, to a degree, or an opening action, I want it to be profound. I don't want it just to be sort of, as I used the previous example, standing in the middle of the stage, hands in pockets, not really offering very much. I want it to be bold. It doesn't matter whether it's upstage, downstage, left or right. I don't matter whether it's me polishing my shoes or pretending to play a guitar. I don't mind whether the line is profound, as long as it's relatively succinct, or a belief, but just something that gives the other improviser something else. On the other hand, as I mentioned just a moment ago, there's the second line. Now, Will Hines, who is a very, very experienced improviser from across the pond, has recently talked about in some of his improv weekly mailings around the second line being very important as well, and it's really insightful. I've talked about him before. If you don't subscribe to his Substack and you're really interested in the theory and just sort of forward-thinking thoughts on improv, definitely subscribe to it. It is excellent in my opinion. But he's talked about the importance of the second line. So not just the opening line, which does need to be good, you've then got to have a response. Because if you come up with something profound like, I believe that bananas are going to save the world, and the second line says, yeah, okay. Oh, do you? You've just got to add something a bit more. And that's what I've also caught myself doing as well. I want to be present right from the off so that my opening line is something profound. But equally, if I'm not doing the opening line, my second line, my response matches that profound opening of the scene. So that's something I want to also get better at as well, and something I want to think about before stepping on stage and getting my mind present to respond immediately as soon as I step on stage as a character. And then probably finally, well, it's definitely not finally, there's a whole plethora of other things I need to get better at, but while it's in my head, the other thing I want to get better at is not going straight to conflict. And I've spoken about this before. One of the things I've spoken about before, one example, was when I did We Are Dave, and I had talked with the other improvisers beforehand, and we'd all agreed, right, don't go straight to conflict. Let's all get on as our characters. Let's all get on at the beginning, and then we can find what the thing is. And as soon as I stepped on stage, the first thing I said to Emily's character was, why are you shoveling that stuff over here? Why are you getting my shoes dirty? And immediately I'd gone to conflict, and it was saved by the wonderful Lewis Hill, who brought us all together and reminded us not to go to conflict as a character. And that's something I want to get better at as well. Pause and think beforehand. Try and converge to a common theme. Find out why all your characters are there on the stage in that moment. What is it that's brought you together? Why would you be together? You must have some common interest or common collective thinking of why you'd be there. So find what that is before start exploring the fractures in those relationships. And that's something I really want to get better at. As I say, it's a bit hit and miss. Sometimes I'm doing it, sometimes I'm not. But the whole purpose about this is just pausing before stepping on the stage and thinking about just have your character get on with other characters, or at least have a shared interest in why they're all there at the beginning, and then explore that relationship a little bit later on. So those are the sort of 2 or 3 sort of things I want to get better at. But the primary thing is pausing before stepping on stage, being present of mind, being conscious about this in my head, and giving myself just a few seconds to collect my thoughts, think about what I'm going to step on immediately, and then let it kind of happen. But I've talked recently about meditation and how that has links to improv. And it's the same sort of thing here, right? It's being present of mind to go, let me not just rush on stage. Let me just think about what I need to do to make sure I can remind myself how to do improv, and to remind myself what will make a good scene here. Have you ever thought about pausing before stepping on stage? Is it something that you do? Have you caught yourself just rushing on stage and then going afterwards, oh, I wish I'd done that, or I didn't do what I'd learned in the workshop or the course, or we didn't do what we did in rehearsals? Or conversely, are you very good at pausing before stepping on stage, reminding yourself what you need to do? I would love to know what tricks and tips you deploy before stepping on stage. What sort of things do you do to remind yourself and give yourself that sort of breathing space before you fully engage in being an improvised character on stage? So thanks very much for listening to the Nano Film Improv podcast, and I'll catch you in the next one.